How can I say you guys? You guys are the best to me because you make me feel happy once I get one more sub. So please, I'm doing a 20 subs, uh, 20 subs special in Roblox. Not just that was too many games. Yeah, when I get 20 subs, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and punch this sub to Tin Can. Yeah. So, what are we going to do, you may ask? We are not going to play Roblox. I am going to read you a story, which is. Wait a moment. That's it. The Land of Stories, Part 1. The wishing spell. So, I'm going to make you feel this book is the best book in the world. Yeah, I watched the whole series. What the hell? This is the best series in the whole world. Yep. So, prologue. The Queen's Visit. The dungeon was a miserable place. Lights were scarce and flickered from torches bolted to the stone walls. Foul-smelling water dripped inside from the moat circling the palace above. Large rats chased each other across the floor searching for food. This was no place for a queen. It was just past midnight, and all was quiet except for the occasional rustle of a chain through the heavy sounds. The single set of footsteps echoed throughout the halls as someone climbed down the spiral steps into the dungeon. Remember, this is just the prologue. I'm not going to read you the whole story in one video, guys. So let me see how many pages the prologue is. Ooh, that's a bit. That's 9 pages. But I'm going to read you a bit of chapter 1. You know, the wishing spell 1, Blood Stories 1 and 6, Wishing Spell and Words Collide are very, very great. Well, how do I say the 5 book, which is, what is that? The and author's Odyssey. Yeah, it's so great. You might want to see it when you read all 4 books first. A young woman emerged down the steps, dressed head to toe in a long emerald cloak. She cautiously made her way past the row of cells, sparking the interest of the prisoners inside. With every step she took, her pace became slower and slower, and her heart beat faster and faster. The prisoners were arranged according to crime. The deeper she walked into the dungeon, the crueler and more dangerous the criminals became. Sights was set on cell at the very end of the hall, while a prisoner of special interest was being watched by a large private guard. You know who it's it? Like the title, Land of Stories. You might want to know who is it. So first, I'm reading you the conclusion, the first one, which nothing. No, never mind. The woman had come to ask the question. It was a simple question, but it consumed her thoughts every day, kept her lying awake most nights, and was the only thing she dreamed about with the little sleep she managed. Only a person could give her the answer she needed, and that person was on the other side of the prison bars ahead. I wish to see her, the cloaked woman said to the guard. No one is allowed to see her. I'm on strict orders from the royal family, the guard said, almost amused by the request. The woman lowered her hood and revealed her face. Her skin was as pale as snow. Her hair was as dark as coal, and her eyes were as green as the forest. Her beauty was known throughout the land, and her story was known even beyond that. Your Majesty, please forgive me, the stunned guard apologized, quickly bent into an overly pronounced bow. I wasn't expecting anyone from the palace. No apology necessary, she said. Please do not speak of my presence here tonight. Of course, the guard said, nodding. The woman faced the bars, waiting for them to be raised, but the guard hesitated. Are you sure you want to go in there, Your Highness? The guard said. There's no telling what she's capable of. I must see her, the woman said, at any cost. The guard began turning a large circular lever, and the bars of the cell rose. The woman took a deep breath and continued past them. She journeyed through a longer, darker hallway, where a series of bars and barriers were raised and then lowered. After she walked past them, finally she reached the end of the hall. The last set of bars was raised, and she stepped into the cell. The prisoner was a woman. She sat on a stool in the center of the cell and stared up at a small window. The prisoner waited a few moments before acknowledging the visitor behind her. It was the first visitor she had ever had, and she knew who it was. Without looking, there was only one person it could be. Hello, Snow White, the prisoner said softly. Hello, stepmother, Snow White replied with a nervous quiver. I hope you are well. Although Snow White had rehearsed exactly what she wanted to say, she was now finding it nearly impossible to speak. I heard that you are the queen now, her stepmother said. It's true, said Snow White. I've inherited the throne, as my father intended. So, to what do I owe this honor? I do come to watch me wither away, her weak stepmother said. There was no authority and power to her voice. It was known to make the strongest of men melt like ice. On the contrary, Snow White said, I've come to understand. To understand what? Her stepmother asked harshly. Why? Snow White hesitated. Why, I did what you did. And with this finally said, Snow White felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had finally asked the question that had been so strongly on her mind. Half of the challenge was over. There were many things about this world that she don't understand, the stepmother said, and turned to look at her stepdaughter. It was the first time in a long time that Snow White had seen her stepmother's face. It was the face of a woman who had once possessed beauty without flaw, and the face of a woman who had once been queen. Now, the woman sitting before her was a prisoner whose looks had faded into a permanent sorrowful scowl. But the ending will be scary and sorrowful. When you watch the 12th second book, The Enchantress Returns. That maybe, Snow White said. But can you blame me for trying to find some sort of reason behind your actions? The recent years of Snow White's life had become the most scandalous of the kingdom's royal history. Everyone knew the story of the fair princess who'd taken refuge with the seven dwarfs while hiding from her jealous stepmother. Everyone knew of the famous poisoned apple and the dashing prince who had saved in Snow White from forced death. Forced death. The story was simple, but the aftermath was not. Even with a new marriage and a monarchy to occupy her time, Snow White found herself constantly wondering if the theories of her stepmother's fancy were true. Something inside the new queen refused to believe that someone could be so malicious. Do you know what they're calling out there? Snow White said. Outside these prison walls, the world refers to you as the evil queen. If that is what the world has labeled me, then that is the name I should learn to live with, the evil queen said. Once the world has made a decision, there is little anyone can do to change its mind. Snow White was astonished by how little her stepmother cared. That Snow White needed her to care. She needed to know there was some humanity left in her. They wanted to execute you after they discovered your crimes against me. The whole kingdom wanted you dead. Snow White's voice faded to a faint whisper as she thought of the emotions building up inside her. But I wouldn't allow it. I couldn't. I suppose to thank you for sparing me, the evil queen asked. Is that someone to fall at your feet, express gratitude? You've come to the wrong cell. There. I didn't do it for you, I did it for myself there. Snow White said, now like it or not, you are the only mother I have ever known. There, so I refuse to believe that you are the soulless monster the rest of the world will claim you to be. Whether it's true or not, I believe there is hope deep down inside of you, my stepmother. Tears rolled down Snow White's pale face. Well, she had promised herself to stay strong, but she had lost control of her emotions once she was in her stepmother's presence. Then I'm afraid you're wrong, the evil queen said. The only soul I've ever had died a long time ago, and the only heart you'll find in my possession is heart of stone. The evil queen did indeed have heart of stone, but not inside her. A rock in the shape and size of a human heart was on a small table in the corner of the cell. It was the only item the evil queen had been permitted to keep when she was arrested. Snow White recognized the stone from her childhood. It had always been very precious to her stepmother, and the evil queen had never let it out of her sight. Snow White had never been allowed to touch it or hold it, but nothing was stopping her now. She walked across the cell, picked it up, and curiously stared down at it. Brought back so many memories. All the neglect and sadness her stepmother had caused her as a child rushed through her. All my life, I only wanted one thing, Snow White said, your love. When I was a girl, I used to spend hours hiding in a plow, just hoping you would notice I was missing. And she never did. Spent your days in chambers with the mirrors, and the lost in queens and the stone. Spend more time with strangers with anti-aging methods than you did with your own daughter. But why? The evil queen did not answer. You tried to kill me 4 times, 3 of which you attempted yourself, Snow White said, shaking her head in disbelief. When you dressed as an old woman and came to me at the dwarf's cottage, I knew it was you. I knew you were dangerous. but I kept letting you in. I kept hoping that you would change and let you harm me. Snow White had never confessed this to anyone, and she couldn't help but bury her face in the palms of her hands and cry after seeing it. You think you know your heartbreak? The evil queen sat so sharply that it startled her stepdaughter. You know nothing of pain. You never received affection from me. But from the moment you were born, you were loved by the entire whole kingdom. However, I'm not so fortunate. Arthur Snow White sometimes have the only loves they've ever known taken from them. Snow White didn't know what to say. What love was she referring to? Are you speaking of my father? Snow White asked. The evil queen closed her eyes and shook her head. I meant such a privileged trait, she said. Believe it or not, Snow White, I had my own life before I came into yours. Snow White grew quiet and slightly ashamed. Of course she knew her stepmother had had a life vow to marry her father, but she had never considered what it had consisted of. Her stepmother had always been such a private person. Snow White never had reason to. Where's my mirror? The evil queen demanded. It's to be destroyed, Snow White told her. Oh, man. Well, suddenly, this is a very bad thing. Well, suddenly, the evil queen's stone became much heavier in Snow White's hand. Snow White didn't know if this was really happening or if she was just imagining it. Her arm became tired from holding the stone heart, and she had to put it aside. There's so much you're not telling me, Snow White said. There's so many things you kept from me all these years. The evil queen lowered her head and sat at the ground. She remained silent. I may be the only person in the world with any compassion for you. Please tell me it isn't going to waste, Snow White pleaded. If there were events in your past that influenced your recent decisions, please explain them to me. Still there was no response. I'm not leaving here until you tell me, Snow White yelled, raising her voice for the first time in her life. Fine, the evil queen said. Snow White took a seat on another stool in the stall. The evil queen waited a moment before beginning, and Snow White's anticipation grew. The story will forever be romanticized, she told Snow White. No one will ever think twice about mine. I will consider to be degraded into nothing but a prostitute villain until the end of time. But what the world fails to realize is that a villain is the victim whose story hasn't been told. Everything I have done, my life's work, and my crimes against you, has all been for him. Snow White found her own heart grow heavy. Her head was spinning, and curiosity had taken over her entire body. Who? She asked so quickly that she forgot to hold back the desperation in her voice. The evil queen closed her eyes and let her memories surface. Images of places and people from her past flew out from the back of her mind like fireflies in a quiet cave. There was so much she had seen in her younger years. So many things she wished she remembered, and so many things she wished to forget. I will tell you about my past, or at least the past of someone I once was, the evil queen said, but consider yourself warned. My story is not one that ends with happily ever after. Well, I'm going to read you a few more pages. Chapter 1. Once upon a time. You see, it is chapter 1, not prologue 2. Once upon a time, Miss Peters sat to her 6th grade class These are the most magical words our world has ever known, and the gateway into the greatest stories ever told. They're an immediate calling to anyone who hears them. A calling into a world where everyone is welcomed and anything can happen. Mice can become men, maids can become princesses, and they can teach a valuable lessons in the process. Alice Bailey eagerly sat straight up in her seat. She usually enjoyed her teacher's lessons, but this was something especially close to her heart. Fairy tales are much more than silly bedtime stories. The teacher continued. The solution to almost every problem imaginable can be found in the outcome of a fairy tale. Fairy tales are life lessons disguised with colorful characters and situations. The boy who cried "Woof!" teaches us the value of a good reputation and the power of honesty. Cinderella shows us the reward of having a good heart. The ugly duckling teaches us the meaning of inability. Alice's eyes were right, and she nodded in agreement. She was a pretty girl with bright blue eyes and short strawberry blonde hair that was always kept neatly out of her face with a headband. Three the other students stared at the teacher as if the lesson being taught were another language or something Miss Peters had never grown accustomed to. So Miss Peters would often direct the entire class to the front row, where Alex sat. Miss Peters was a tall, thin woman who always wore dresses that resembled old patent sofas. Her hair was dark and curly and set perfectly on the top of her head, like a hat. And her students often thought it was through a pair of thick glasses. Her eyes were permanently squinted from all the judgmental looks she had given her classes all over the years. Sadly, these timeless tales are no longer relevant in our society. We have traded their brilliant teachings for small-minded entertainment like television and video games, Miss Peters said. Parents now like obnoxious cartoons and violent movies and foods to their children. Oh my god. The early exposure to the tales. Some children acquire off versions bastardized by film companies. Fairy tale adaptations are usually stripped of every moral and lesson, with singing and dancing forest animals. I recently read that films are being created depicting Cinderella as a struggling hip-hop dancer and Sleeping Beauty as a warrior princess battling zombies. Awesome! A student behind Alex whispered to himself. Alex shook her head. Hearing this made her soul hurt. She tried to share her disapproval with her fellow classmates, but suddenly her concern was not reciprocated. I wonder if the world would be a different place if everyone knew these tales in the way the brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen intended them to be known. Miss Peters said. I wonder if people would learn from the Little Mermaid's heartbreak when she dies at the end of the real story. I wonder if there would be so many kidnappings and children were shown the true dangers that Little Red Riding Hood faced. I wonder if delinquents would be so inclined to misbehave if they knew about the consequences Goldilocks caused herself with the three bears. There is so much to learn and prevent for our futures. If we just open our eyes to past teachings, perhaps if we embraced fairy tales as much as we could, it would be much easier to find our own happily ever afters. If France had a way, Miss Peters would be rewarded with thunderous applause after each lesson she gave. Unfortunately, all that fall her class was a mutual sigh of relief among the students, thankful that they were over. Let's see how well you know all your fairy tales. The teacher sat with a smile and began pacing the room. In Rumpelstiltskin, what did the young maiden's father tell the king that his daughter could spin hay into? Does anyone know? And Miss Peters scanned the classroom like a shark looking for a wounded fish. Only one student raised her hand first. Well, yes, Miss Bailey. Miss Peters scored. She claimed she could spin hay into gold. Very good, Miss Bailey, Miss Peters said. If she had a favorite student, not that she would ever admit to having one, Alice would have been it. Alice was always eager to please. She was the definition of a bookworm. It didn't matter what time of day it was, before school, during school, after school, before bed, she was always reading. She had the thirst for knowledge, and because of it, Alice was usually the first person to answer Miss Peters' questions. She tried her best to impress her classmates with every chance she got. Putting extra effort into each book report and class presentations she was assigned. However, this usually annoyed the other children, and Alice was often teased for it. She constantly heard other girls making fun of her behind her back. She usually spent lunch alone under a tree somewhere with an open library book, although she would never tell anyone. Alice was so lonely that sometimes it hurt. Now, can anyone tell me what the compromise was that the maiden made with Rumpelstiltskin? Alice waited a moment before putting her hands up. She didn't want to seem like a total teacher's pet. Yes, Miss Bailey. In exchange for turning the hay into gold, the maiden promised to give Rumpelstiltskin her firstborn child when she became queen. Alice explained. That's a pretty steep deal, said a boy behind Alice. What's creep old short man want with a baby anyway? The girl next to him asked. Obviously, he couldn't adopt with a name like Rumpelstiltskin. Another student added. Did he eat the baby? Someone else asked nervously. Alex turned around to face her class peers. You're all missing the point of the story. Rumpelstiltskin took advantage of a maiden because she was in need. The story is about the price of a bad negotiation. Alex said. What are we willing to give up long term in the future for something short term in the present? Get it? If Miss Peters could change her facial expression, she would have looked very proud. Nicely put, Miss Bailey, she said. I must say, in all my years of teaching, I've rarely come across a pupil with such much in-depth knowledge as a loud noise suddenly came from the back of the classroom. A boy in the back row was over his desk and drooling from the corner of his mouth, very much asleep. Alice had a twin brother, and it was moments like these that made her wish she didn't. Miss Peters diverted her attention to him like a paper clip to a magnet. Mr. Bailey, Miss Peters asked. He continued to snore. Mr. Bailey, Miss Peters asked it again, kneeling down closer to him. He let out another enormous snore. A few of the students wondered how it was possible for such a loud noise to come out of him. Miss Bailey! Mr. Bailey! Mrs. Peters shouted in his ear. As if someone had lit a firework under her seat, Connor Bailey jumped back to life, almost knocking his desk over. Where am I? What happened? Connor asked in a panicked state of confusion. His eyes darted around the room, while his brain tried to remember where he was. Like his sister, he also had bright blue eyes and strawberry blonde hair. His face was round and freckled and, at a moment, slightly smushed to one side like a basset hound when it first wakes up from a nap. Alice couldn't have been more embarrassed by her brother. Besides sharing looks on a birthday, she and her brother couldn't have been more different. Connor may have had a lot of friends, but unlike his sister, he had trouble in school, mostly trouble staying awake. I'm so glad you couldn't join us, Mr. Bailey. Miss Peters sat sternly. Did you have a nice nap? Connor turned bright red. I'm so sorry, Miss Peters, he apologized, trying to be as genuinely as possible. Sometimes when you talk for long periods of time, I doze off. No offense, I can't help it. You fall asleep in my class at least twice a week. Miss Peters reminded him. While you do talk a lot, before he could start himself from saying it, Connor knew it was the wrong thing to say. A few of the students had to bite their hands to stop from laughing. I recommend you stay awake while I teach, Miss Bailey. Mr. Bailey, Miss Peters threatened. Connor had never seen anyone squint their eyes so tight without shutting them off. Unless you know enough about fairy tales to teach this lesson yourself, she added. Probably do, Connor said, once again, spoke without thinking. I know a lot about this stuff, that's all. Really, Miss Peters never backed down from a challenge. And the students' worst nightmare was that they feared challenger. Alright, Miss Bailey, if you're so knowledgeable, answer this question now. Couldn't go. In the original tale of Sleeping Beauty, how many years did Princess sleep before she was awoken by true love's first kiss? Miss Peters asked, studying his face. All eyes were on her, impatiently waiting for the slightest indication that he didn't know the answer. But fortunately for Connor, he did. 100, Connor answered. Sleeping Beauty slept for 100 years. That's why the castle grounds were covered in vines and stuff. Because the curse affected everyone in the kingdom, and there was no one to guard it. Miss Peters didn't know what to say or do. She frowned down at him, immensely surprised. This was the first time he had never ever been correct when she'd put him on the spot, and she certainly hadn't expected it. Try to stay conscious, Mr. Bailey. Lucky for you, I used my last attendance this morning. But I can always request more, Miss Peters said, and promptly walked to the front of the classroom to continue her lesson. Connor sighed with relief, and the red drained from his face. His eyes met his sister's. Even she was surprised he had gotten the answer right. Alice hadn't expected Connor to remember any fairy tales. Now, class, I want you all to get out your literature books. Turn to page 170 and read Little Red Riding Hood quietly to yourselves, Mrs. Peters instructed. The students did as they were told. Connor made himself as comfortable as possible at his desk and began reading. The story, the pictures, and the characters were all so familiar to him. One of the things Alice and Connor looked forward to the most when they were very young had been trips to see their grandmother. She lived up in the mountains, in the heart of the woods, in a tiny house that could best be described as a cottage. Such things still exist. It was a long journey, a few hours by cars, but the twins loved every moment of it. Their anticipation would grow as they travelled up the windy roads and through with endless trees. And when they crossed a yellow bridge, the twins would excitedly exclaim, "We're almost there! We're almost there!" Once they arrived, their grandmother would greet them at the door with open arms and hugs so tight they would almost pop. "Look at you two! You're both grown up food. Since the last time I saw you," Grandma would say, even if they hadn't, and then would lead them inside, where a freshly baked batch of cookies waited for them. The father had grown up in the woods, and would spend hours each day telling twins his adventures as a kid, what trees he climbed, what streams he swam, and what ferocious animals he barely escaped from. Most of his retellings were highly exaggerated, but they lasted time with more than anything else in the world. Someday when you're older, I'll take you all to the secret places where I used to play. The father would teach them. He was a woman with kind eyes that wrinkle whenever he smiled. And smiled quite a bit, especially when he was teasing the twins. At night, the twins' mother would help their grandmother cook dinner, and after they had eaten, as soon as the dishes were done, the family would sit around the fireplace. The grandmother would open a big storybook, and she and their father would take turns reading the twins' fairy tales until they fell asleep. Sometimes the Bailey family would be up until sunrise. They told stories with such much detail and passion that it didn't matter how many times the twins heard the same story. They was the best memories any child could ask for. Fortunately, the twins hadn't been back to their grandmother's cottage in a very long time. "Mr. Bailey!" Miss Peters shouted. Connor had dozed off again. "Sorry, Miss Peters," he bawled back, sitting straight up in his seat like a soldier on guard. If looks could kill, Connor would have been tapped from the skull she was sending him. "What do we think of the real Little Red Riding Hood?" the teacher asked her class. The girl with frizzy hair and thick braces raised her hand. "Miss Peters," the frizzy-haired girl asked. "I'm confused." "And what's that?" Miss Peters sat as if asking. "What on earth could you possibly be confused about, idiot?" "Because it says it's a big bad wolf killed by the hunter," the frizzy-haired girl explained. "Oh, I thought the wolf was just upset because the other wolves in the pack made fun of his snout, and he and Little Red Riding Hood became friends at the end. At least that's what happened in the cartoon I used to watch when I was little." Miss Peters rolled her eyes so far into the back of her head she could have seen what was behind her. She sat with a clenched jaw. "That's exactly why we're having this lesson." The frizzy-haired girl became white-eyed and sad. How could something so dear to her have been so wrong? "Homework," Miss Peters said, and the room unanimously stumped in their seats. "You ought to pick your favorite fairy tale and write a paper due tomorrow on 3 lessons the tale is trying to teach us." Miss Peters went to her desk, and the students began working on their assignment with a little class time remaining. "Miss Bailey?" Miss Peters summoned Connor to her desk. "A word." Connor was in deep trouble, and he knew it. He cautiously